Okay, so today's presentation is on something called sleep hygiene, and it's by myself, Carl Williams. So sleep hygiene, the overview of this course, we'll be looking at how you can develop a target time for you to go to sleep. We'll be looking at the biological and physiological elements of sleep. We'll be looking at behaviour and routines, how lighting is important, how the environment is also important, to look then at the relaxation, and then finally sleep techniques of going to sleep. And also what would happen if you wake up, if you interrupted. So the first thing we look at is a target time. What we mean by the target time is what time do you want to go to bed? And it's important that when you think about this, it's what time would you like to go to bed? And another consideration is what time's realistic for you to go to bed. So you may have, you may want to go to bed at 10 o'clock, but realistically, you won't really be able to get to bed until about 11. So that's what it's important for you to identify what time is realistic for you. So once you've agreed on that sort of target time, we then work back from that target. So what we do when we work back from that, we're going to look at the biological and physiological elements of sleep, especially for us. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that we don't eat anything heavy for at least about 2 hours before going to sleep. If you can eat small things, but we try to give that 2 hours sort of rest, because you don't want your body to be doing anything else apart from going to sleep. Another thing is to consider as well, this 2 hour window also applies for things like no stimulant drinks. And what I mean by that is things like coffee or tea or any sort of soft drinks that may have sort of caffeine in it. You're okay to have water. And don't forget, all these things are just as a starter because your sleep is disrupted and it's not that good. And another additional element is exercise as well. We don't want your heart to be elevated in any way, shape or form before you go to sleep. Some people do like to do some yoga and stretching before going to sleep, but this is particularly for people who are finding it difficult to sleep. So as I mentioned, all these things can increase your heart rate, and you want to reduce this before bedtime because you want to start getting the body into a routine of slowing down or switching off to go to bed. So another important element then is the behavior and routines. So whatever routines you have before going to bed, it's important to keep those routines because it's signifying to your brain and to your body that you are going to sleep. So whatever those routines are, sort of brushing your teeth, putting the cat out, having a bath or a shower, whatever those routines are, is to keep those because it starts, behaviorally, it's starting to wind you down. So it's more the process of getting ready for bed. Another important element is lighting. Now, the reason why this is important is because the brain knows when to go to sleep when it's dark. It's just an evolutionary thing that we've had that's developed over millions of years. So you're telling your brain you need to go to bed. It's time to go to sleep. So you need to reduce the lights. So ideally, if you go to sleep, it should be in the dark. But you can have a small light. Some people like a dim light in the background. So things you need to be conscious of is that not playing with your phone because it's got a backlight on it for at least 20 minutes before going to sleep. So this also includes things like TVs or computers and things like that you may do close-up work with. Some people have Kindles, but also remember they may have a backlight to them. So if you want to read anything, read something like a book or paper, something that hasn't got a backlight to it. So lighting is important. Now your environment. So when you go to sleep, the bedroom is normally reserved for sleep or sex. Those are the only two things really we reserve the bedroom for. And you're trying now to condition your brain is that when you go into the bedroom, all these sort of environmental cues will will get you to go to sleep. So just be conscious, are you a person that likes it needs to be total quiet, or are you a person that likes a bit of background noise? It's these things you just need to be aware of. Are there certain smells that help you go to sleep? So lavender is been identified as helping people go to sleep, but sometimes you can get oil burners or candles or things like that just to relax you. And don't forget, these things are short term until you condition the brain to when it's sleep bedtime is that you can go to sleep. So all these things are temporary measures until you can get into that habit. So are there certain colours that you find more relaxing, that you may be able to put more of that colour in your room? Just so things like nothing so that strikes out, nothing that'll stimulate the brain like really bright colours like yellows and things like that. Something the more pastel colours are quite nice to calm people when they're going to sleep or relax. So relaxation, this is an important part now. So you've done your routine, you've made sure that you're not eating or drinking any stimulant things, you're not doing exercise, you've got your routine and your environment's okay. So the next step now is to relax. So a quick sort of relaxation technique is just a simple breathing in for the count of 3. And when you do this is to tense your body. You hold it for the count of 2 and you hold that tension, and then you breathe out for the count of 3 and then release that tension. So if you repeat that 2 or 3 times, it's a nice way of relaxing your body. If you wanted to do a little bit longer, what you could do is maybe work through your body from head to toe, toe to head, and do this individual muscle groups. It can take about 10 minutes to do. I think in the initial stages is just to do the full body tense and relax just a few times, just to get your body a little bit more relaxed. And you can do maybe a body scan at the end of it just to see whether there's any residual tension, and wherever that tension is just to tense into it, hold, do this breathing technique and then release. So now the sleeping technique. So now you're relaxed, you're in a darkened room, hopefully. You followed all the previous steps. So the sleeping technique is a breathing technique. So it's a very unique breathing technique, and it's an awkward technique, but there is a reason for that. So you breathe in for the count of 4, you hold it for the count of 7, and then you breathe out for the count of 8. It's a very irregular way of breathing, but what you're doing as you're doing this, it helps you control your thinking and your body. So you're thinking of counting, you're then holding your frame, you're holding your breath, you're then controlling it as it's being released. So whatever it is, if you are one of these people that their brains race before going to sleep, this is a really good way of focusing that. And if you do notice any sort of thoughts, just allow them to come back and allow them to pass through, but then gently bring your thinking back to this breathing sort of pattern. So what if you wake up? So this is a common sort of thing that happens. So the rule of thumb is that if you're in bed for more than 15 minutes and you can't get to sleep, is to get up out of bed and do something mundane. So whether that be reading a book or going downstairs, just doing something that's not going to stimulate, and you must be aware not to put bright lights on or anything like that. And then after that, you go back, try to go back to bed, and then you repeat the relaxation and the sleeping technique again. Because what you're doing is literally conditioning the response of going to sleep. And what that means is you're training your brain to go to sleep on command, more or less. And it's important that this becomes a part of your routine. Even if you are tired and you're going to go to sleep anyway, what I would recommend is to just do the breathing technique and the sleeping technique before going to bed. Because what you're doing then is that you're conditioning that link between sleep and this sort of sleep hygiene sort of process. And eventually all you will need to do is the last part, which is the 4-7-8 technique, and that will help you go to sleep. So things to remember is that you should try the sleep technique even when tired. And you need to do that as often and as regular as you can. And there are a couple of things as well that you must remember when you're awake. So in daytime, try and spend some time outside in natural light. So what you're basically saying then is to the body is that it's light outside, and this is the time I should be awake. So it starts then getting a natural rhythm of when you're awake and when you're asleep.